Well, good morning. It's still morning. Good morning, everyone. I'm so glad to see everyone. We're really delighted today to be sharing another lunch and lead with you. We have a very special guest today, Mayor Tom Dermody, who is going to talk to us a little bit about authentic leadership and offer you some of his perspective. What we at the Leadership Institute spend a lot of time on leadership development. Some of you are in our current classes, or you were a graduate from our previous sessions, but we do Leadership Northwest Indiana, which is for leaders all across the region in all different businesses and nonprofits. And then we also do the Explorer Academy, which is specific to leaders within the Purdue Northwest system. So welcome everyone. We also have some guests, community guests with us today, and we're just really delighted that you've joined us. So I'll pass to Rachel. She'll frame a little bit about our conversation today, and then I'd love to introduce the mayor to you. And he's going to just wow you with all his perspective.
Thank you. And welcome everybody. So nice to see a great group here today. And thank you, Mayor, for joining us. In our programs, we take an evidence-based approach to learning about leadership and developing our personal leadership styles. And authentic leadership is a wonderful theory that helps us frame a little bit how leaders develop. And so just to put a little bit of context around what we mean when we talk about authentic leadership, authentic leadership is really the cross-section of a leader's values and their strengths. And so in order to be true to oneself while leading, it really is important to have clarity on values and also to know, what you do well and sometimes what you don't do well. And it's being able to build on your strengths and your values that allows you to have this sense of, I don't want to say calm because that might not always be the case, but being true to yourself allows you to be a lot more comfortable leading in difficult situations. I think today we're going to talk a little bit around leading during crisis. And there's no time that's most important to have clarity on values than in crisis. This is when we tend to see leaders really rise to the occasion because their values allow them to have a little bit more clarity on how to set priorities, because it becomes a very trying time and you really do need to align priorities with values. So I'm excited to hear what Mayor Dermody has to say today. I know we've had a chance to hear you before in the Leadership Institute, and it's been fantastic. I will say a couple of comments about authentic leadership development, which is a theory that discusses leadership development as a journey, not a destination. And the things that allow leaders to continually get clarity on who they are and what makes them an effective leader has to do with things around relational transparency, right? Being transparent about the things that are important in the process of leading, having self-awareness, being, again, values become critical in that self-awareness piece, and then balanced processing, or another way of describing that might be some perspective taking. So I'm hoping that these pieces around authentic leadership development are helpful for our participants as they listen to some of the wisdom that we get to hear from Mayor Dermody today. And at that, I will pass it over to our esteemed speaker. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to introduce you first, Tom, because I really want people to know a little bit about you. So the Lunch and Lead series that we're holding, this is our second in the new series. It's an opportunity for you to learn from leaders across our regional community, leaders who have been time-tested, leaders who have wisdom to share. And Tom Dermody is just such a wealth of that perspective. So I've known Tom for many, many years. He's a seasoned businessman and also a political leader. He graduated from LaPorte High School and he went to Purdue and graduated from Purdue. He had a business in LaPorte County And then he and his wife have also started a nonprofit called We Connect, which helps people who are unemployed get back on their feet and connect to good jobs. Tom served for many terms in the Indiana House of Representatives, representing District 20, and did a really fabulous job making sure that Indianapolis knew that we were alive and well up in the northern part of the state. He and his wife Jackie have 2 grown children. And Tom and Jackie are a real duo. When you see one, you usually see the other, and they're a really great community couple. Tom won his race for mayor in 2019 and took over at the beginning of January, where he has really guided his community through some very significant leadership challenges. Who knew when Tom took over on January 1st that we would be walking right into a historic period for all of our communities with the pandemic. I mean, nobody knew it was coming. And certainly those of us who have leadership positions, and each one of the people on this call are a leader in their own right, whatever role you play in your community or in your workplace or in your family, we all are leaders, and none of us expected some of the challenges that we've had to face. So with that introduction, I'd like to introduce Mayor Dermody to you. He is going to talk for about 20 to 30 minutes. He's a really interactive person, you'll find out shortly. And so I've told him that I would monitor the chat. So if you have things that you'd like to talk about, you want him to continue on a certain theme that he mentions, if you could put that in the chat, and then when Tom is finished kind of giving some general remarks, then we'll start peppering him with interesting questions, okay?
Absolutely. And I'll always know Sheila is Commissioner Matthias and the leader that she is in LaPorte County. So you all are very fortunate to have her leading this class and leading the opportunity that each of you have in the future. LaPorte County and the city of LaPorte is a special place. And this is the part of the job I truly love, are talking to young people like yourself, because you are the future. You're going to make the difference. So any interaction that I can have, I truly enjoy. I'm struggling a little bit because I like the back and forth live and in person, but obviously due to COVID, it's unfortunate that we're not able to do that. But please, as I've told Commissioner Matthias, please, anything goes. You can ask any questions. I've got big shoulders, and I usually don't blush very often. So as Commissioner Matthias mentioned, my background, and again, I think my successes mostly have come from my failures. So from a business perspective, I've owned businesses, I've started businesses up, I have purchased and acquired businesses. We've had businesses that have failed, to the point where we've had businesses that we've taken 9 employees in a business that was going out of business and turned it into an 80 employee company with great growth that turned around and sold it to a public company, a public entity. And it's pretty cool when you wake up one day on CNBC or the Wall Street Journal and you see this little blib about your company selling to a public entity. So I've kind of lived from a business perspective the entire spectrum, from a political perspective, and I swore I was never going to run for office growing up. I didn't know much about it, and ended up being on the LaPorte School Board for 4 years, and then serving in the Indiana State House for 10 years. And the neat thing about that was I was the public policy chairperson. And so you dealt with 4 items and 4 items only. And you talk about the opportunity for leadership.
Tom, we can't hear you, or I can't hear you. Anyone else have trouble hearing?
Yeah, it sounds like we just lost him.
He lost his speed empowerment.
Yeah.
Okay, let me make sure he's not muted. Okay, no, he's not.
I wonder if his connection. Yeah.
Tom, we can't hear you. Oops, he's off. All right, maybe he's going to jump back on. Well, you got it quick.
There we go. I think
there you are.
So when you talk about those 4 items, and many of you have probably may not have heard of the Sunday sales, offering alcohol on Sunday sales a few years ago that I led the charge on. I think it takes a lot of leadership to bring it, and we're the first. I was the first chair that ever brought it to the floor, make it to the floor, I should say, of the Indiana State House, and so that has given me great experience. Then leading into the mayorship here in the city of LaPorte, and as Commissioner Matthias had mentioned, day one, day two, you're trying to get your feet wet, and all of a sudden this COVID situation takes place and kind of throws you for a little loop. But I think my background, one thing you have to know personally, I'm very competitive. I hate to lose, whether it's playing checkers with one of my mentees at the middle school or LaPorte High School, to playing euchre, cards, anything. And I think that competitiveness and that drive is really what's made the difference to some of my successes. I've always been in athletics, whether it was at LaPorte High School or at Purdue. I had the opportunity to participate in both, and it forced you to compete and compete at the best. And I think that's most important. And one thing that we've always lived by, and we took our personal core values that we tried to live by, and I promise you, I've not been perfect. I've learned from my mistakes. I've learned from the issues from business and failures. And but some of our core values that not only we try to live by as a family, but that we put in place as a business have always been, number one, family is first. No matter what, our employees, people here at City Hall, if something's happening, family first. We'll worry about the rest later. But family first. Demonstrate accountability and integrity in all things. And it's not about the blame someone else or blame that person. If you're doing the right thing, you take accountability for it and you accept whatever comes from that. I've never considered work. If I'm doing something fun, I've never considered it work. I've always considered it play. Play hard, have fun, work as a team. And that's what we've installed here at the city, but also with our business. We have to be a team. We have to be one. And the one thing that we've always tried to understand is people that you are in charge of, that you are employing, or that you are leading, whatever project you're working on, these people have had tough lives in a lot of situations. This may be the one shot at being a part of something special. And it's on you, it's on me, it's on all of us to make sure that we remember that and give them the best opportunity to succeed and to be a part of something special. The other part, growth happens when we work from the neck up. Use your brains, use your smarts, and you go with your thought. Take risks, think big. And again, with that comes failure. But whenever you're thinking about something and you're laying out your future plans for your business, for you personally, think big. You don't ever look back and wonder, what if? Appreciate creativity and encourage creativity from your team. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's about the entire team and making them be a part of it and feel comfortable that they can be creative. Embrace change. One statement that here at City Hall I do not allow for is any process that we're looking at, but this is saying, but this is the way we've done it for many years. I've said, don't tell me that. That's not an opportunity. Communication is free. And I would tell you, communication is one of the most important opportunities you have to be successful, especially if you're leading other people. There are many times, and I don't know if all of you have the opportunity to manage other people, but sometimes there are just those days you want to go in your office, you want to close the door, you don't want to see anybody. But those are the days you have to get out, check your team, talk to them. What's happening? What can you do to help them? And go back and forth. But the minute you go in and close the door and say, hey, I don't want to talk to anybody, is the first day that you're going to be dealing with a bigger problem down the road. Gratitude can inspire. Getting out, one of the things we always did on our line, I drive people nuts here at City Hall. I go around to the different departments. I was high-fiving for a while, but now I'm forced to elbow bumps with my masks. But making sure, hey, what are you doing today? How are things? And the same with the plant. And then always be part of a solution. If you have a complaint and you want to have my time, don't just bring a problem. You have to bring a solution, and then let's work through that solution to see how we can make things better. But when people come and just complain, or residents complain, and I've been an individual that for some reason put my cell phone out there for the residents, and I've paid the price in some instances of that. But everybody feels like they can complain. But okay, tell me what you want done, and here's the situation why we can or why we can't do this. That's the most important part of that. And it's always funny when you talk to people. I think one of the areas that I did when I was younger, you always try to say something very nice while you're leading into the problem, but really get to the point. Be respectful, because I always get these messages and these texts about, hey, you're doing a great job. And I always tell people, whenever I hear that, I just look forward to when is the but. And because then they say, but I have this problem. Deal directly with people, look them in the eyes, shake their hands. From a leadership perspective, you're the leader, and look them in the eye and state your point, what you want to accomplish. Too many people give in as a leader on whatever they want to talk about or whatever they want to do to make life better or their work better, but they're giving in by settling versus staying strong in what they believe and going for it. So with that, I think it's important also if you can have a general energy for your business. If you don't, or if whatever you're going to be in, get out. If you don't love your business, don't have the energy for it, I think you ought to find something else to do, because people can sense. They know when someone's faking it. They know when somebody's not being real. And I have great energy and I drive people nuts, but I get that about myself. And, I share the story as a part of leadership and a part of fight and overcoming odds. Everybody, again, can, on the first day, the second day, be a great leader, own a business, and do the great things. But when day 3 hits and you're a little tired, day 4, all of a sudden, a company's not paying you. Day 5, you've got some issues. That's when your real test is. And every day you have to get up and be ready to grind, but more importantly, lead your team. One of the things that I overcame when I was 25, and as I said, I've always been a part of athletics. I always felt I had an S on my chest and couldn't be down. I was diagnosed with cancer when I was 25 years old, and all of a sudden going out living life to being told I've got surgery and chemotherapy and I'm going to lose about 56 pounds, 60 pounds, and I'm going to be bald. I'm going to lose all my hair. Now, I will tell you this, I'm the best looking bald guy you would have ever seen back in the day. But, and I thought I had problems then when I was leading into cancer and I was involved in business trying to do different things. And then a life-changing event happens. And that's where I give all of my success and my energy and my belief that no matter what happens in your everyday life, life is not so bad, because you see other people dying. You see other people fighting for their life. And I think that comes in play when we talk about the COVID situation that we're in. When you look at someone like Commissioner Matthias, I promise you, her and I, the last thing that we want to do is getting involved in how people have to act, behave as a part of this to keep everybody healthy. But we see what happens when people put their head in the sand and ignore as if it's going to go away. So when we talk about masks, when we talk about social distancing, stop going out late, doing these different things. What we're looking at, and I would ask each of you, or if you know of people that struggle with some of the things that leaders do regarding COVID to try to overcome it, sit yourself in her position, my position, when we see family members in the community, community members that are dying, that are very sick. We see businesses that are struggling, trying to stay alive. And so when we deal with that, everybody can say, no, it's not a good thing to do. But leaders step up when things are the most difficult. And all I can tell you is you have to do what you think is right. I always try to communicate and talk, and Commissioner Matthias, myself, and the mayor of Michigan City, we all talked about this. What are the upsides? What are the down? Be prepared. But you have to make a decision. Nobody goes out to make a bad decision, I promise you that. But sometimes they work out that way, and you'll learn from that, and you make a better decision moving forward. But I can tell you, that's when your job is to step up and lead the community, because even the people that may not agree with you are looking for somebody to step up and lead their business, lead their community, because if not, they're left with their own vices. And most people don't know where to turn or what to do. And sometimes we give those individuals just an opportunity to complain, but they feel comfortable that there's somebody stepping up, trying to do the right thing. So with that, I know time-wise, I've got a whole list of things. I like to ramble. And like I said, that allows me to be interactive. The one thing I want to mention that I think the success, if you're going to grow your business, if you're going to grow whatever you're involved in, you have to make sure you have the right people on your team in the right positions. Get them on the bus. One of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my business career was I always felt I could save everybody from drama. And drama is probably one of the biggest issues that we always face going into a new business and so forth. But I always felt, hey, don't worry, even though they were disruptive on the production floor, disruptive in the sales team, whatever it might be, I always felt, hey, I can solve this. I can make this person get on board. And one of the best things that we learned, and my wife put more of the hammer down than I did, sometimes the best thing to do is to allow that person to start the next day of the rest of their life somewhere else and move them along. We've actually helped people find other jobs because they were ruining our culture. And I say that because the other thing I've done is hired some family and friends in the past, and I almost lost a best friend because we couldn't get along business, and his culture belief was different than what we were trying to do. But what I would tell you is, if you have a person that is not the right person or the right member of that team, and you keep turning your head because you don't want to have a difficult decision with the person, or you don't want to terminate somebody, it will not go away. Ignoring it and turning your head every day in hopes that it'll get better, it won't. And the biggest problem to that, it could cost you your business. And literally, I mean that. It could cost the growth and what you want to accomplish there. So take charge, do what you know is right, and I promise you it will work out. So
thank you, Tom. Thank you, Tom. We have so many things that people want to talk to you about. You've really kind of encapsulated some really contemporary things about the pandemic. Certainly, I think one of the things that resonates with me is when you say, if you're a leader, you need to lead. You by trying to please everyone, you please no one, actually. And while you might make a decision that makes some people not happy with you, you need to really stick to those values that Rachel and this group of wonderful leaders talks about often is leading with your values. And you are a really good example of that. And, you gave an example from the last couple of weeks about how those of us in leadership in LaPorte County had to really take some firm steps. We have a really good question from someone who may or may not live in Valpo, but her question is about COVID, and I think it's a really good leadership challenge question. She said, it appears Valpo is becoming known nationally as the COVID city. It's terribly embarrassing that we are known for not complying with health and safety protocols. If you could say or do something to steer the Valpo's mayor leadership in the right direction, what would you offer them?
Well, number one, Mayor Murphy called me yesterday. And I saw the article about COVID City. I just mentioned that, and I said, we will not be COVID City. And that's why again, I'm going to keep using the term leadership of Commissioner Matthias, myself, and Mayor Perry in Michigan City. We didn't put our head in the sand and hope for better. And if you read the Northwest Times article, it says business people are now reaching out saying, we're going to go out of business. We need help. People need to put masks on. And I don't know if I want to call it a solution, but what I've suggested to Mayor Murphy is do something. You have to do something. And again, I believe we've enacted pretty simple restrictions, behaviors that will bring the numbers down and what we can control. So do something that'll make a difference. Do something that you can control. But 3, be out there and lead and do something. And again, you understand this, when you make a decision, you're going to get grief. So know that going in, personal, private, I'm sure your husband or wife doesn't make something you like for dinner every single night. So there's grief, there's a problem. So get used to it. And if you're going to be a leader, there's great opportunities, but with that comes the acceptance that you're not going to make everybody happy, and you have to deal with the words and the names that come out there. And if you've never looked for some of those individuals that are knocking you, if you've never looked for their approval, what do you care about what they say? Just do what you think is right. And that's exactly what I've told the Mayor Murphy. We will help them with restrictions. And I think that's an important part because, again, I saw the article for COVID City, and that's something that we don't want anybody in the region to be a star for.
Thanks, Mayor. I think one of the great things that you did, and I'm going to give you total credit for this, last week you were the one who called me and said, we need to do something, not just LaPorte City, but all of us together. And we pulled together a group of leaders to really brainstorm what's the best move to make, what will the community support, but also what's going to make the community healthy. And from some very non-complying big businesses, we've had to deal with them this week, and some of them aren't happy with us, but we knew that we were going to be doing it for the health and welfare of people. So we have a lot of really good questions. There's a little bit of a debate going on about failure. You talked about failure being, that you failed in some businesses, and I know that learning comes from failure, but so someone said failure is a good teacher. What failure have you turned into a success? And then someone else says, but wait a minute, is failure the best teacher, or is it just one of the ways to learn? So can you share your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. Well, success is the best teacher, and they have the opportunity there. But when I look, I take losing. It's much more difficult for me to lose than to win. And when I win, I'm on to the next opportunity. When I lose, I am always in, what could I have done better? What should I have done differently? And I can't let it go. And that drives me to do the next, to try the next opportunity. But a couple things that I see, and again, it gets back to positive attitude culture. And I was when I first in my late 20s, a part of an organization where I was with some pretty strong community people in South Bend that we started a business together and ended up failing. And while trust is an important part of it, number one, you have to do your due diligence, you have to be prepared, and you have to use the team around you. That's where I think we learned we lost a business because we were trustworthy, and a couple of the main partners felt like they didn't need to talk to anybody else. They knew what was best, and they were going to move this business forward on their own. And because of that, it was a struggle. Number two, sometimes your customers, whoever you're dealing with, that when I say go big, Quality Farm and Fleet. If you remember, and I don't know if you're too young to remember Quality Farm and Fleet, we sold a lot of product of Quality Farm and Fleet, and they went bankrupt. And I was a part of a meeting. We lost $274,000 at that time to Quality Farm and Fleet. And I saw men at that time in their 50s and 60s at a corporate meeting to inform us nobody was going to get paid and they were going out of business. And I saw people lose their life, lose their future. And I watched older men cry right in a simple meeting. And in fact, I'll share this story. I'm all not positive, but two of our business owners, one committed suicide after that, and number two, one passed away from a heart attack, and they were in their late 50s. And so what I learned is you got to step up every day. The next day, the sun will shine and you can overcome. So when things feel like that, they're at the end and you're struggling, and in a business, you most likely are going to go through that at some point. Things aren't going to work out like you planned. You have to be willing to get up the next day and it will work out, and just keep grinding, keep doing and leading. But you have to be willing to say, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to quit.
Thanks, Mayor. We have some not so young people on the call today, and we have some young people. And we have a question from a student who's working on her graduate degree, I think an MBA. She's saying, what advice would you have for young people on how to get started in leadership? What advice would you give for someone who might aspire to it but doesn't quite know how to start?
You know, one thing that I've always challenged, I have a senior in college at Wabash, a daughter that just recently graduated from Purdue Northwest. She's a Lion as well. And one of the things I challenge them and their friends, and I say this respectfully, but some of that age group and the young people don't look past their nose. It's what is in it for me? What can I do? And as I've tried to explain to them, number one, get off the sidelines. Number two, get in the game somewhere. So I find the county commission, the city of LaPorte, there are all ways to serve on committees, to be involved in something that you have that shows interest. We're looking for people, we're encouraging people in the city of LaPorte right now, young people, to get involved, and not just because it's government, but exactly your question, it's an opportunity to lead. And you're going to make mistakes and learn from that. But I think number one, get involved in a community, something that you want, that interests you. And then if not there, get a part of United Way. Look for an organization where you can lead, and it might be fundraising, it might be something else. But number one, get in the game. There's plenty of opportunities to serve, and then test yourself to take leadership roles in those opportunities to make a community, a business, or a nonprofit a better place.
Thanks, Tom. I love your idea about asking to be on a board or commission. I do share a story sometime with our group that when I was a young stay-at-home mother, most of you know that I have six children. And so I was a working mom to begin with. And then there were more of them than there were of me. And so I began to stay home. And I have to say, I felt like my brain wasn't being used very much. I was doing lots of crafts and, things that you do with children. So I remember I wrote to, at the time was Mayor Cliff Arnold. And I said, do you have anything I could volunteer for? And I just wrote a little letter and just asked. And sure enough, 3 days later, my phone rang, and that he opened the door for me to what has become a really fun political career. I've was on the city council, but I learned from that. I learned how city work, how it all works together. And so that's a really good way of beginning to understand how communities work and how government works by just volunteering to do something and then kind of taking it from there. So that's a really, I love that idea.
And Sheila, here's the other part that I was saying. Oh, I don't know if I'm echoing, but Sheila's a Democrat. I'm a Republican. The election's over. Nothing matters. I don't care if she's a Democrat, Libertarian. We work together. Leave the politics at the door. We do that well. So whatever you are and being involved, once the election's over, do your part. You're all one trying to make the community a better place.
That's great. So you talked a little bit about embracing change and being creative and having open communication. Those are all kind of pieces of innovation. So talk to me about how you view innovation in your workplace. So right now you're running the city. Government isn't known to be really innovative. And some of the organizations that folks on this call are in, they're either in a big university, they're in a big healthcare system. Often those big organizations they're like big old dinosaurs and they move very slowly. So how do you encourage innovation in your workplace? That idea about telling people to be creative, but then, don't be that creative, or, hey, this is how we've always done it. Why should we do it differently? It works just fine. Talk to us about maybe how you encourage innovation and then some of the innovations that you've brought to the city of LaPorte.
Prepping for this meeting allowed me to go back, and I don't know if you've had the opportunity to do a DISC assessment on yourself, but it allowed me to go back and look at my DISC assessment and talking about innovation, growth. In fact, it gives you the positive and it gives you the negative. And what, again, as I've told you earlier, I always focus on what I can improve on and to drive. And one of the things was Tom is potentially reckless. And that term stuck out with me when I read last night, going through that about innovation, about the opportunity that I'm willing to take risks. And so what I've encouraged, we have some long-term strong leaders of departments here at the city of LaPorte. But again, they've done things the same way every day. So one of the things that I do, I work specifically with those departments face to face to say, tell me the processes. And many of them were like, oh, well, this is the way we do it and it works well. We can't find a better way. So what I try to do are starting with small processes that I know can improve once you work with them and you go through it and say, okay, what about this? What about that? And we work together. And all of a sudden we find improvements in those processes and they're like, oh, hey, I guess this is okay. It saves a person. It saves someone driving an extra 3 miles somewhere. One of the things we look at during COVID, and I'll give you a specific COVID example, we will get 100 to 150 people in our front doors at City Hall to pay their water and sewer bill. And I said, why are you coming in here early on this year to pay your water and sewer bill? Well, because I've always paid it that. I'm a resident. I always pay it that way. And I said, do you like coming in? Well, no, I have to leave work or I have to wait in line because we don't have enough people. So Courtney Parthune, our clerk treasurer, and myself looked at a couple things, whether it was using COVID dollars or just looking at the new technology that's been in place for a few years, but I guess in lack of a better term, may have been ignored. We are setting up now water and sewer bills so that people can pay their bills from their phone, from their bedroom with their phone. They never have to step 1 foot into this door. And then number two, using COVID dollars to build a drive-through in the back of City Hall so they never have to get out. For those older people that still want to see a paper receipt, they want to see someone give it back to them. And so it's a combination, and it's knowing your customers, because everything won't work for everybody. And so you try to blend of the important groups of customers and say, hey, what's happening and how can we make a difference? So I think that's important.
Thanks, Mayor. So talking about developing as a leader, how did you find your voice? Was it through athletics? Was it just because of your personality? How did you find your voice as a leader?
It really was athletics early on, whether it was football, basketball, or baseball. I had the opportunity to captain those sports, and and it comes back to a title or a star for a captain. Just because you have a position or a title doesn't make you a leader, and it doesn't make you the person that people will listen to. I think, again, getting involved, helping other people, help say, hey, what's our common goal? What do we want to do? Whether it's winning a game, whether it's growing a business, and testing. And I think in my 20s, I was always afraid of making a mistake. And then you learn and say, okay, I was put in a position in charge of a company that I was owning to say, hey, we don't have someone that understands the sales part. So I had to step up. If we wanted to grow our company, I had to bring together a team to grow sales that never had sold before. So kind of in the action forced me to step up and say, okay, we're going to make mistakes together, but together we'll make this improve.
So we have a good question in the chat. It's about leadership in polarized times. So we've just come through a very polarizing presidential election, and it's still ongoing and all of that. With social media, there's a lot of division between people, and you're in this camp or that camp. And the question is, how do you lead in very polarized political situations where there are strong differences and you're trying to get people to work toward the common good?
One thing I've always tried to do is have people contact me. I like to look at them eyeball to eyeball, and especially those that are nasty, because social media has its benefits, but it also gives an opportunity to be a keyboard warrior and to really say things you would never say to people face to face. And so, number one, when times were normal, I always like to offer face-to-face conversation. What is your issue? What is your problem? Because if you want to improve something, it should never be personal. And that's whether you're in business, in private, government, whatever, nonprofit. It should always be about improving the process. It should never be about personal attacks. But again, you do what's right. You do what you think is right, and you have points of why it's important to do it. But most importantly, I think you listen to people and you bring them together and ask them to say, what are your concerns here? And some people you're never going to get to, but I think the polarization, it's going to take young people like you, all of you, to help say, hey, let's work together to make this community, this state, this nation a better place. And you're going to be open to listening to other people's opinions and voices. And I'll give you an example. When I was in the State House, and I'm a Catholic, I always believed growing up, marriage is between a man and a woman. But, we came up with the gay marriage amendment, and it was very difficult for me because I'm also one that says, I don't care what you do. That's your life. It's your opportunity. Don't force me into a situation. But I've learned so much from people that have difference of opinions due to that, that have brought us together. Because I've always joked, and I say this with all due respect to Sheila, but I said, keep the Democrats out of your pocketbook, keep the Republicans out of your bedroom. And, it's tough, but you just have to be open and willing to listen, and you'll be surprised at how much you will learn from that.
Thanks, Mayor. Boy, you nailed it on the importance of communication. Nothing is more important in life of leadership, in my opinion, than being able to communicate. So, as a young politician, I did a lot of doorbelling. That's kind of gotten out of style. But I had little kids. I'd put them in the wagon, and they'd have the flyers, and they were great because they had so much energy. They were, running up to doors and hanging the little thing on the doorknob, and if ringing the bell, and if the person was there, I'd go up there. But what it allowed me to learn is how important you can disarm people when you are looking at them and talking to them. Oftentimes people have some sort of preconceived notion of what a political person is. We're all, corrupt and we're this and that. But when they're talking to you about the crack in their sidewalk or the crooked stop sign or the playground that's not working for them, they begin to see the common connections. And I think that's what's so important about being a good leader, is being able to build that common connection between people. So you nailed it. I think that was really, really well said. Now, there's a couple other questions here. There's also some advice in this. If you haven't looked at the chat, there's been some really good comments. One of the things people are asking about is, would you recommend any books or podcasts or anything that they can use to add to their professional development? Certainly, Dr. Smith is a resource full of, she knows every book and idea out there. So she's often sharing with us. So that's kind of a common theme here. We try to make sure that for those who want the extra resources, we always give them lots to do and things to look at. So if you have some ideas, you could share those with us. But also for all the people that are on, if you've found something that's been helpful for you, please share the wealth. If you found a podcast that really, has been good for your personal development, please feel free to share. I see Jason Williams is on, and he's great at that also, being able to find resources. So the chat has been really interesting. Mayor, do you have anything that you would share about that?
Here we go. I've been a big John Maxwell. I've used John Maxwell, and I keep their books around. Simon Sinek has also been fabulous. There was also a book I've really appreciated, is Essentialism. May not be strictly with leadership, but also about keeping a focus. You can't do everything, keeping your life simple. And then I can't think of the name, but the Happiness. And now, because again, I forget
There's a great book on happiness called Happiness is an Inside Job that I don't know if that's the one you're talking about, but
no, it's the CEO from Zappos.
Oh,
and
okay.
I felt like that was a fantastic book. But again, the other part of that is just, I'll brief through the Wall Street Journal looking for different articles, or if you're working out, it's a great time to pull up a podcast. And sometimes it's not all about leadership, but you see how people deal with conflict. And, you can learn about leadership, even if it's not a leadership video, but how they're handling stress in different situations. So there's so much opportunity there. But again, I would really reiterate, don't be afraid to step into a leadership opportunity even if you don't feel you're prepared, and get in the game.
Thank you. People are dropping some really good ideas into the chat for podcasts and books. So please make sure you notice, you take a look, everyone. Sue asked can you provide advice for women leaders?
I know
I can.
Yeah, I would think that's a strong one. And I will use my wife.
It might take me hours, but I've got some.
Don't be afraid to use your voice. And again, my wife was a perfect example, never knew business, was always a government employee. And we threw her into business because I was at the State House when we had a growing company, and she had to find her voice and not be afraid to use it. And I think it's important that you have people around you that you trust that will support you and tell you when you make a mistake. But again, women or men, we all have an opportunity to lead if we're willing to do those things necessary and stay strong.
Great advice. Great advice. We might have to do a separate offline conversation about all the tips I might have for women, but finding your voice is one of them. I remember very distinctly as a young mother, also on the city council, coming to the city council meeting with a baby in a little baby carrier because I was nursing. And I put the carrier down between they were one woman and the rest were men, 8 men, and putting the baby down next to my colleague, who was an older, very conservative gentleman. And he certainly did not appreciate the fact that I actually had an infant in the room. And I remember thinking, how am I going to, I mean, his disdain for my baby's presence and for me was almost palpable. And I just remember that whole idea about finding your voice. And I had to really steel myself to say, you know what, he's not going to intimidate me. You know, I'm still, I might have a newborn baby here that's, 2 weeks old, but I have a brain and I'm going to use it. And so, just having the confidence to find your voice and then to use it, I think that's a really, really poignant lesson, particularly poignant for those of us who've had to break some new ground.
And Jason Williams said, Jason's on the call, Delivering Happiness. That was the book. I love that book.
Okay. Yeah, there's some really good book suggestions. Rachel even gave you the Amazon link if you want to buy them. That's great, Rachel. Thank you. Just in summary, so we want to respect people's time. If you have any last questions, throw those up in the chat. But Mayor, if you could drill down to just a few little nuggets of wisdom to leave people with today. We've talked about a lot of really great things, and thank you so much for your candor. I think candor in leadership is really, really important. And Brene Brown says, "Clear is kind." To be really, you're doing someone a kindness by being clear with them, even if it's not what they want to hear. And you talked even about allowing employees who weren't a good fit to find other opportunities when you know that wasn't wasn't going to be best for them long term. But what are some of the last nuggets you'd leave with us? Because everyone on this call, they're pretty hungry for wisdom, and they're also really focused on developing themselves. And obviously, you know that when you're developing as a leader, you're not just developing your leadership for work, you're developing your leadership as a whole person.
Absolutely. Number one, I think one of the best things you could do is say no. Don't be afraid to say no. If you're going to focus on something as a leader, you can't do 10 other things. You have to be able to concentrate and focus, take it serious. Number one, success, leadership is not about you. Don't do this or don't get involved to see how you can see your name in the paper or promote yourself. You are doing it for everybody else. And if you're prepared to see success of your team and the growth of your company while you grow personally, you're in it for the right reason. And I think it's the little things, the thank yous, the hellos that you do with your team, and just listening. God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And I think it's important to listen to people, sit, look them in the eyes, concentrate on them, and build a team. And then clarity, as you said, I think clarity is so important. And sometimes that can be difficult. It can be difficult because people have been in positions. If you come into a leadership role, you may have to change things. But the most difficult conversations happen when you have to let somebody go, or you have to deal with issues because you were not clear. And anything most of the time, and one of the things I always love with John Maxwell, and I've used a trainer there, and everything always will come back and fall on you. You can say, well, it's those 2 people's fault on the line, or those 2 people in the department. But if you break it down on what could have, should have, and would have happened, leadership falls on you. It's not those other people's fault. It's all of our fault. And accept that and know if you do the little things now, they will pay benefits down the road. And I would just like to add, my cell phone is 219-363-7293. If you ever have further leadership questions, or I can ever help P&W, it's a great organization, great education opportunity. And we are all in this together. And take a chance, step into some roles that you may have not in the past, and go make a difference.
I don't think we need to say one more word. You just summarized it so beautifully. Thank you, Mayor Dermody. Thank you, everyone. This was just such a delightful way to spend an hour together. Really appreciate everything you said. And thank you for sharing your phone number. We'll try not to pester you too much, but thank you. Bye, everyone.